Okay, so anybody out there in internet land? There we go. Now we started. Whoops, started a bit early. Hi, anybody out there in internet land? Welcome to the Land Down Under Hangout, where tonight we are talking about To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers, which is a beautiful book, just gorgeous and glorious. As usual, I think we'll start off with just general impressions. So, Matt, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I have loved all of the previous 3 Becky Chambers books that I've read, and I think that we've all read, possibly, most of us. So I was keen for this, even though it's not obviously in the same universe, or at least perhaps not in the universe at the same time.
On her website, she says it's not.
Okay. But still, I really, really enjoyed it. I loved it. I'm not normally a huge fan of novellas or short stories, as I think everyone's aware. But this one I gave 5 stars. I just loved it so much. I think I've only ever given that to one other novella that I've read, and that was Neil Gaiman's Ocean at the End of the Lane.
I'm disappointed to hear it wasn't Murderbot.
No. Oh, actually, maybe I did give Murderbot 5, but that seemed like even shorter. Anyway, regardless, I really enjoyed it. Loved it.
Beautiful.
Loved it.
Liv.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. I didn't give it 5 stars. I gave it 4 because I'm quite picky. But you know what I'm like. No, I really enjoyed it. I think it would have been perfect I had it read it for this weekend. If it's like raining outside and you're in your PJs and you've got a cup of tea with you, it feels like one of those kind of books, and it's set in like in space. But I feel like I get that from Becky Chambers anyway. Just because it's just, even though they go through the trials and tribulations and everything like that, but it just felt really nice to read, and I liked the characters, and I just wanted to be there with them, not necessarily be my family, but yeah, I liked it. It was good.
Awesome. Looks like Naomi's joined us. I'm not so sure about Karina yet. Not yet? Okay, I'll come back to you guys if that's all right. Yep. Okay, I'm not going to make Nikki go yet because that's not fair. G, how about you, since you're here with us, and then you can get back to cooking if you need to.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Didn't realise it was a novella. I did the audiobook. I really liked how different it was from other space kind of books, in the fact that we changed with the environment rather than the other way around. That really was right up my alley. Wish there was just a little bit more explanation and detail about that. I'd really like just a story on that, to be honest. But every new world left me going, oh, what's going to change with this one, which I thought was really cool. I wish we could visit more worlds, and I wonder, are there more?
No.
Sadly.
Yeah, so I haven't given it any stars yet. I haven't rated it yet. I'd probably give it maybe a 4, maybe a 3.5, because I'm more of a fantasy leaning than sci-fi, so that would be my preference. Yeah.
Awesome. Nikki, are you good to go?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
All right, go for it.
I really liked it. I really like her writing style and the way she kind of draws you in. I felt like I was having a conversation with the main character, and I really liked that style. I gave it 4 stars, just because, I don't know, a 5-star book is kind of an elusive thing for me. It's like 5 stars, like I can't stop reading it, whereas this is more, I can stop, but I don't want to. Yeah.
No, that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
Awesome. Kirsten.
I really loved it too. I did the same thing as G though. I was like, I didn't know this was going to be a novella, and I just wasted a whole audiobook credit on it.
Did nobody pay attention to the fact that it said it was a mini read and it was in the mini reads voting and everything?
No, actually, I'm sure I read it before we even picked it. Like, I read it quite a while ago. It was before.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
And I just remember going, oh, a new Becky Chambers, and in fact, I'm pretty sure I downloaded it like the day after it came out or something, because I was like, it's just come out and it's a new Becky Chambers, and I loved all her others. So I don't think I really looked into it that much. I just hit click, yep, I'll take that book. And then I was like, damn it, I shouldn't have paid for a whole credit for this. I could have just got like a physical book, or I don't know. I suppose it just always feels like I can get a Brandon Sanderson for 40 hours for the same $14.95 on Audible, which is, it's sad, but like I loved the book and not disappointed that I spent money on it. I just kind of go, well, that was like 2 days of listening, and now I have no credit left until next month. So, but apart from that, I really, really enjoyed it, and yeah, just got kind of the same feeling from it than I did from the other Becky Chambers books, even though it was different characters and different world. But yeah, something about her writing just really, she has this way of making you feel like you know the people, like that they're personal friends of yours almost, like, which I really enjoyed. But I have forgotten a lot of the details because it was a while ago. So I'm just going to have to go, oh yeah, that was a thing, as people talk about it.
Fair enough. Elizabeth.
Well, this was a 5-star book for me. So this is my second time through reading it as well. Amusingly enough, when I first got it, because I read a physical copy, but I still went through the same thing that Kirsten did. It arrived and I was like, oh, it's only this big. Oh, okay, that's fine. So I really loved the world building and the thought that was put into that. And I felt that I find that Becky Chambers' writing generally has a lot of heart to it, and I found that it was the case with this one as well, and in a way that kind of doesn't dumb down complexity. So there's a lot of, she does a really good job of conveying like joy, especially joy of discovery in this book, but she also doesn't shy away from showing like some of the heartache that goes alongside it, and so I really loved it.
Awesome. Well, Karina and Emmy are still on mute, so I'm going to give them another minute and just go myself. I gave it 5 stars this afternoon, but I have a feeling I might back that down to 4, just because that while as much as I thoroughly enjoyed it and I love Becky Chambers' writing, I don't think it had the it factor for a 5 for me. It was extremely enjoyable. It had all of those comfort feels that we have already mentioned about Becky Chambers. I loved it, but it didn't make me go, oh my God, I'm going to read this again straight away or anything along those lines. So yes, which is kind of what I'm looking for in a 5-star book. So yeah, anyway. Naomi.
Hi. Sorry for having visual difficulties. We're blind. I enjoyed it. I wanted more, and I was very happy with the length of it, if that makes sense. Like,
it sounds contradictory.
I really enjoyed what I got, but I would have also really appreciated, like, did they go home? Did they not go home? Did they, what happened? Like, I know that that's the whole point of the novella, and I enjoyed where it finished, but also, like, I would have really enjoyed having more as well, which is why I only gave it 4 stars and not 5. I think if I had some sort of, like, what happened to the earth completion sort of thing, like, I feel like, I don't know. I did really enjoy it though.
All right, Karina, extremely fresh take. How did you enjoy it?
Can I have 5 minutes to process, please? I literally just finished it. I got to page 223 and then I went, that seems like the end of it, but it says there's 243 pages, and then realized that there's a bunch of like excerpts from Angry Planet and all that. And I was like, oh, I'm finished. I guess I can join in. She was like, oh, good, we've just started. I'm like, I just finished.
Fair enough. As
I'm
somebody
here,
who
but
just
I'm not here. Look, it says I have 12 minutes to go. I don't have 12 minutes to go. It's over.
Yeah. As somebody who's only finished it this afternoon, but already feels like she wants to change her rating, totally understand that you need to process. All right. Let's get down to some discussion points. Does anybody have anything they want to bring up straight away?
Why do you want to change your rating? What did you rate it? What do you want to change it to?
She gave it 5.
I gave it 5. I want to change it to 4 because I don't think it had the it factor for me, which is usually what pushes me into 5. 4 is it's an extremely good book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would recommend it to people who had similar interests. 5 is I'm shoving under your nose, begging you to read this book, which was the first Becky Chambers book.
5 is a book where I'm like, you read this, and you read this, and you read this, and everyone read this. Everyone reads it.
Whereas this, I was just like, oh, it's so nice to be back with Becky Chambers. I'm very happy, but I'm not going, oh my God, please read this book with me.
Yeah, like Lionel sort of was looking at it, and I'm like, yeah, I think he might enjoy it because he enjoys space stuff. But
Ooh.
I'm just like, people that I don't think that would enjoy it, I'd be like, if you want to read
That's
it,
actually,
try. I just don't know if it would be for you.
Yeah, that actually brings me to probably a first discussion point. So we actually bought this book last year when I was on a book buying ban because Nye wanted to read it after he'd read the first 2 Becky Chamber books, and he was like, no, I want them all, buy them. And I was like, well, that means you're buying books, not me, just to make sure that's very clear. And he's like, yep, that's fine. I said, I'm not reading it until 2020 because there's no way I'm touching it because I'm not allowed to buy books. And he's like, yep, that's fine. Okay, cool. So we're all good with that. So this book was bought for Nye, technically. That's my husband, by the way, Nikki. As of this afternoon, banned him from reading this book on a higher level than I banned him from watching Toy Story.
Why?
Because of the scene where they kill that little animal.
Oh,
Yeah.
I feel like it's a book that should come with some trigger warnings, actually.
And that was the scene where I banned him. But I've got to say, the scene that happened later with the other, the sucker creatures, I was like, yeah, he ain't allowed to read this book ever. I created a whole new level. Nye has levels of where I ban him from reading books, mostly because of animal cruelty of some kind. I created a whole new level on this book, basically.
I did think about you in that particular scene, though. I was like, oh, should we tell her?
No. Look, honestly, I can deal with that kind of thing in terms of reading. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. But I can recognise that this is fiction and can deal with that kind of thing. Nye, however, sorry?
At least it was done well. Like the character was feeling the same emotion that you were feeling as you were reading it, rather than feeling pleasure at having or nothing, which is worse, right?
Yeah, but it was extremely explicit in its description, which is fine. It was appropriate. I've got no problems with it happening. It just means that my husband is completely banned from reading it because he would be traumatized for a month over it. Sorry, nice sensitive.
I found it quite traumatic to read, and in fact, when I was rereading it before tonight, I got to that part and I was like, oh.
In fact, I actually think that seems a reason that I may not just reread this book at any point in time.
So can we talk about the contrast between the pretty, we want to save this animal, to the screaming slugs, we want to kill them scene?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the total opposite feeling. Karina, you're you're muted.
I think I actually highlighted one of those paragraphs. The latter of the 2 that you're referring to. Sorry, we're just troubleshooting. Yes, that's better.
Like, did anyone else feel that, like, you felt horrible and like traumatized for the beautiful alien that you really wanted to know more about, and then not so bad about the screaming slugs that had been on there for days?
No, not at all. I found that equally as horrible, actually, and I really didn't enjoy rereading that section either.
I think that she highlighted something very, very true about human nature, just in terms of like when things are cute, people feel worse about it.
Yeah.
And I also feel like the circumstances were very different.
Yeah,
the amount of time and that grating on your nerves day in, day out, it would be a relief almost. But that after scene as well, with her going out of the airlock and not even realizing that that's what she's doing, going outside and trying to lose herself, and that was amazing. That was it's amazing how she can fit all of those emotions into such small little chapters and jump us from scene to scene, and we still feel that.
I thought it was actually really good to sort of, in terms of representation of depression, which I know is switching it from your focus, G, and I'm sorry about that. But I felt like that that whole scene in general was actually, that whole section in general was done really well in terms of the different ways people were dealing with the problems. And even though you could tell, well, I felt like you could tell that she was dealing with her problems as best as she could, it was very interesting to sort of have a circumstance where it wasn't the person who, well, to me, it wasn't the person who you thought was actually going to end up there. Like, I don't know about anybody else, but I thought it was what's his name?
Chikondi.
The guy who resorted back to his room.
Yeah, Chikondi. I thought it was Chikondi who was going to end up at the suicidal point, and I felt like the story.
Funny. He had done that earlier, I think, and so he realised immediately what was happening. He'd done it by himself in his cabin, like alone, and dealt with it by himself, like behind all the scenes, and so he realised what was happening as it was happening, which I thought, again, how she can make you see that without having shown you that is a brilliant writer. Yeah,
she is brilliant. Like, she is probably at the moment the one author who I will just auto buy.
Yep. I mean, she did a really good job of showing like the ongoing like wearing at the psychology of the astronauts there in such a short amount of time. Like, it's only a novella, and it's only like a small part of the novella, but it really gives a clear indication of how long this is going on and how little sleep they're getting and what the kind of the ongoing impact on them is.
And I thought she did a fantastic job. Sorry,
you go.
I was going to say, I thought she did a fantastic job of showing that while I can't even think of our main character's name again. Oh my god,
Ariadne.
I only just finished this today.
Well, her name doesn't get used much.
I love that name.
It's a great name. Pretty. Ariadne. I thought that in that moment where they were taking off, and she almost felt that she was almost enjoying them dying. But it was also really telling that at the same time before that she was trying her best to save them. So it wasn't that, it was about the release, the relief, not so much about the death. That was the important part there. And I thought that was just so well conveyed.
Yeah. My big complaint about novellas is usually that I just don't care about the characters that much because I haven't built up enough time to care about them. And Becky Chambers has done such a great job of making me care, and like Elizabeth is saying, like showing time passing in such a short amount of time, but making you feel like I felt like I was in that time with them, like where it was dragging on forever, and is this still happening? Like, and it wasn't that long in reading, really. Like, she really did give you this impression of what, like, this just time going by. And it just not getting better, and the noise and the stress that was kind of oozing out of the characters. I just think, she did a really good job of conveying that.
She did something really clever by showing like the bonds between the characters early on, but in like a really domestic setting. So showing like this is like they cut each other's hair and, you know, spend time in the greenhouse together and that sort of thing. I mean, showing like what their day-to-day life is and what their day-to-day affection for each other is.
Really, I love the found family aspect of it.
That's what she does really well though, right? I actually enjoyed the fact that she was able to do that again, but I actually enjoyed the fact that she showed herself to have scientific chops as well in this one.
As someone who's not scientific, I really appreciated the way that she would say something scientific and then say it in a dumb way. That was much appreciated, and she does it really well. And I noticed that she doesn't just do it with scientific things. There was a line in there where not Chikondi, the other guy.
Jack.
Why couldn't I think of the name Jack?
Remember Chikondi, but you could call him Jack.
Yeah, that makes sense. He was frustrated again, and she used some like really verbose word to describe how he was feeling, and then said something like about him telling him to fuck off, and it was just that beautiful juxtaposition of just lovely language and then fuck off. I was like, she doesn't just do it with science.
No, she's just awesome. In fact, I actually couple of times the notes that I wrote were very muchly around her language and stuff like that. Like my very first note was on page 12 where she's talking about how humans are generalists. Like we adapt to all of these different circumstances in terms of environment and the food we eat and things like that. And I was just like, oh my God, I love this description because it's so true. We're a plague, but we're also generalists.
And the way she talked about the amoebas being true ambidextrous, and how Ariadne was saying that when she was young, she was ambidextrous and she just chose to be right-handed because everyone else was right-handed. And then she never was able to really do anything with her left hand again.
Yes.
And it was just interesting the way that it was sort of, she used sort of like science and non-sciencey terms to sort of explain handedness. Like I know amoebas don't really have a left and a right hand, but their handedness of how they function. It was just interesting.
Yeah, I did find that really interesting too.
It's not something I'd actually thought about before, but the way she described it was really interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was a thing in science. Like,
neither did I.
I was just sort of reading it. I was like, I've never even heard of this, and yet I'm excited about this discovery. What the hell?
I liked how she actually got you excited about science in that she's like, I know this sounds boring, but you're a scientist. This is so cool and fascinating.
Yeah.
You really got that across.
In fact, in my review, one of the things I said about this book was that this is a love story for science and exploration. All right. Anything else anybody wants to bring up?
The level of detail that she went into with them waking up at the start of the book and addressing the fact that in the movies they all wake up together, but in this they all woke up separately. And I actually highlighted the fact that she had put in the scientists or the people who prepared everything for them remembering to put in a hair tie. And I was like, that's just such a lovely little detail to put in that, yes, obviously my hair would be ridiculously long, would be annoying the life out of you. And the first thing you'd want to do would be to tie it back.
Yeah. And even just like the fact that that in her version of being, you know, frozen or whatever it is that she called it, you didn't just stop, you just slowed down. Makes so much more sense than actually just pure stopping.
Yeah, and in terms of like the little details, she also talked about the mirror to the side. So it's more like when you're ready, you'll go and sit.
You can turn around, but you don't have
instead
to
of being right in front of you, which I really liked. Yeah.
Because that's a design thing, right?
Yeah.
That's what design people try to think of is when things you want to encounter them and when is the right time to do them. So that's like a designer's job, whether it's a space or whether it's an app or whatever it is, the designer figures those sorts of things out. And
even just
clever.
the way they sort of explained, you know, how you would feel after coming out of being in a torpor after 40 years and having long hair and obscenely long fingernails and having to remove your own catheter and really sexy parts of space travel. Like, and the way she the way she wrote about it in a way where it was medical enough, but it wasn't so like off-putting that you felt.
Yes, it was. Skim read bits and pieces.
It was very grounding. It really grounded the story.
And it really made it feel like something that could actually happen. Like when you watch the movies with like, you know, 10 different people, you know, 10, 20, 30 people all in these pods all together in one room, and then they all wake up and they all look, you know, fabulously fresh with their makeup and their hair did and
neatly coiffed hair.
And you're like, this doesn't seem for really reals. Seems for fakes.
I actually thought it was fascinating that the third time she woke up, because she looked so much more normal, there was nothing different to really see about herself that time. That's when she started having a crisis about her age. I was like, oh, I feel you. One day you just notice it.
And that, the whole passage of time and not feeling your age until you saw someone else who looked so totally like different
Yeah.
from the last time.
Yeah,
you saw
someone
them.
from
That was-
high school where you're
Of
like,
course
holy
that would
shit,
happen.
you look really old. And wait a minute, that's how old I am.
But it would feel like that time hasn't passed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're missing so much like time. And also like they would have been in torpor a lot longer than some of the other people, so they would have been aging a lot slower.
Mm.
Like they were in torpor for 40 years going out to these planets, and you know, those that the was it Lee? Lee, was that the guy's name?
Yeah.
From the ship
Yeah, Lee,
that
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
that got
Oh,
back
yeah,
to
yeah,
them at the
yeah.
end of, yeah.
Yep.
Like he had aged so much, but he obviously didn't go as far because they were able to get back. So
Mm.
it would have he would have aged a lot more in that same time period than they would have as well, which would have been really confronting because that would have they in your front brain you're like, I know that I was born in this year, so that means I'm this many years old,
Mm.
but your body hasn't aged that many years because you were asleep for 40 years.
Mm.
Yeah, it would be very disconcerting in that respect. Trying to look at my notes.
Hear
Anybody
like
else?
background laughter and no?
No.
I was like been wondering whether it's been too loud. Anyway.
You got
Darn
a
it,
party
now I
going
wish
on
it-
in the other room, Liv.
There's
Yeah,
D&D going
just
on.
D&D. Throwing their initiatives.
Tell them to stop being nerds. We're trying to have a book club meeting.
Nice, nice.
No, they're just the wrong type of nerds.
Yeah, be cool nerds.
Let's get
book club
cliquey.
nerds.
Look, you
Yeah.
can be both. You can
That
be
said,
both.
they think they are the cool nerds. Well, my brother thinks he's cooler than me, so whatever.
Brothers always think they're cooler than you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Well, he's playing a bard or something, so whatever.
Yeah, he's the rock star of the world, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I had a note which was about the classification system that they were using when they were she was talking about the different ways that they classify the animals, and she was talking about how they had to be careful not to make comparisons with animals on Earth because they shouldn't use that as a basis. And then I just felt like it sort of went weird because then it went, but now we're also using those as a comparisons because we're saying they're like this. And I was like, well, what's the difference?
Yeah, it's
Like
so
the
like
rats, yeah.
how else like this is how our language works. We don't really have ways to describe these things, so
Yeah.
people
You get it,
kind of
don't you,
resort to
person?
using language of stuff they know because it's easier, I guess.
And I'm fine with that. It was only because she made a big deal about them not using our ways of classifying things.
Yeah.
And then immediately slipped into something that basically did that I was just like, okay, probably would have been better if you hadn't drawn attention to that fact because now I'm bothered. Not
Were they
hugely, but you know.
Were they using that in
See,
more of an
I kind of
informal?
understood that, and I bet Kirsten kind of did as well, because we're librarians and you have to use something to catalogue. You have to
Yeah.
something, and
Yeah.
so the only
And
thing you've got is
sometimes
your
it doesn't
existing
quite
catalogue.
fit, and then
But I'm fine
and then
with that.
create
my
new
teacher
catalogues.
aide will bring me a book and say, but this is in a different number to the other one and it's about the same thing, and I'm like, yeah, but
Exactly.
I didn't catalogue the other one, I catalogued this one and I think it goes in there, and then when you look up the numbers, well, it kind of can go in either, and I just picked a different one to the previous librarian picked for the one she did, and it's like, sorry, this is a fault of the system, it's not my fault. The
And
system
I'm
is
fine
broken.
with that. I'm fine with that. It was only because she basically pointed out that they shouldn't.
I think she was basically saying you can't classify it into the exact nomenclature, I think it's called.
Yeah.
You can't
Like, you
put
can't
it in
call
those
something
categories.
a
So you can use
caterpillar.
the word.
Mm.
They called it a, whatever, analog. So they're like, well, it's similar to this one, but we're not going to actually classify it in this, phylum, class, blah, 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 whatever it is. I used to know it.
Yep.
I don't remember it anymore.
Yeah, then they
what she's-
immediately argued over what they actually were and how they didn't actually fit into
Which
any of
was
those
fantastic. I
categories
loved
that
all
they
of
Which,
that.
already
like, if you
established.
actually look into all of that, a lot of it's really wrong anyway.
Arbitrary.
The ones that we use on Earth is, like, very, very flawed.
And things still get moved
Yeah.
around. But I
Hello,
think it was
Pluto.
I was thinking like certain classifications of birds still get like moved around. But I was thinking it was good for her to put that in, because what she's doing is she's showing the scientific thinking of it, like that was important for the book.
I suppose I was just looking for more difference to be there than what was there when they did have something that they used.
And I think it is also a literary thing of going, well, she needs to get across to us as a reader. What does this creature kind of look like? Oh, it looks like this, but with this.
Yeah, it's like,
and you get a picture in your mind straight away.
Mirroropolis, when she's describing what it looked like when they landed.
Yeah,
she does the same thing there. Like, it's not grass,
but you know, don't have a basis of comparison. So here you go.
Yeah, it's more of a, this is the best way I can describe it to you without you being able to physically see it.
Yeah.
Like saying something is grass-like at least gives you a image of what you're looking at without being able to look at it and knowing that it's like grass, but it's not exactly like grass.
That are coming back to Earth. So these are reports that are coming back to Earth where people haven't been out to space and they haven't seen these things. So they need to have some kind of an understanding of what it would be like, what it would act like, what it is, without being there and seeing it and doing it.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with the classification system they used. I'm only pointing out that I felt like by making that statement beforehand and then introducing this classification system that didn't feel that different.
I think this is the thing though. That wasn't a classification.
No, that was their informal way.
That was just their informal way of talking about
to the things,
because it's easier. But that's not how they were biologically classifying things.
Yeah, when they're talking to each other, they're saying the rat things, but it would never say the rat thing on, or rat analog on the thing. They're using their other classification system for the actual reporting.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what they meant, is that they can't just put it into like the tree of classification that already exists, basically, you know.
So we should think about it more like tagging rather than classifying.
Yeah, I guess so. Because, like, I guess with formal classifying, you're like, it belongs in this kingdom and this phylum and this whatever
category and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and then so you're like in all of these categories, but like these creatures like wouldn't even fit into that system at all. It wouldn't make sense.
See, the another thing that I thought of as well
they didn't evolve here.
Even though they're kind of creating this new classification system as they go.
Yeah.
They're all learning this, but sometimes they're going to talk in a shorthand to each other about the thing that they just saw outside, and they're still learning this classification system. It's not second nature to them yet.
Yeah.
They're probably going to say, the rats.
And naming something and classifying it are not the same thing. Like they're basically naming these things that, but they're not classifying it as that type of animals. They're not saying it's a mammal. They're saying it's a, like, I can't remember which ones they actually used anymore, but like they might say, oh, it's a rat-like thing, or the rat analog or whatever. But they wouldn't classify it as a mammal, because it can't be, even if it has some features in common with mammals, because it's, do you know what I'm saying?
No, I understand.
Like,
I think when I said the tagging thing is when I accepted everything as being okay, because that's when I sort of went, oh, yes, that makes a lot of sense, because, yes, it's a book, it's something that would fit into this particular folder or something, but you tag it with these other things so that you can find it easy and make references.
Yeah.
Well, think about the way they called them rats. They weren't rats. They didn't look like rats. They didn't sound like rats. They weren't really anything like rats, except that there were lots of them that were rats.
And they were grey.
So I feel like the rats I feel like though the rats were very different to everything else they encountered though. That was an exception situation where they were extremely bothered and having problems with them, and so they came up with a term for the circumstances. But because I don't think they would have called them rats if they hadn't ended up being essentially swamped and plagued by them.
Yeah, I feel like they called them rats because they were...
No, Jack says he names them rats because he dislikes rats.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, he dislikes them because they're stopping them from doing what they want to do. Exactly that.
No, even before they start to, that happens within like the first encounter of them meeting them. He decides they're called rats, even before it turns into a huge ordeal.
Fair enough.
It was a sound.
But it was still the only one that they did that with. They never named anything else with any sort of nickname that was analogous with anything else that was back on Earth. They would make physical comparisons, but they wouldn't actually name them after something. They wouldn't say, oh, this thing is the ferret-like thing or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So,
I
They
think
were
it's
never
human nature to do
stuck
that too.
with anything else either. They had free reign of other planets, and they could move around, and they could study other things on these planets. Whereas when they were on that planet, all they could study was the undersides of these slugs. So, for however many months they were stuck.
And even that, not really.
never
Like, they could look out the window. They couldn't really, like, they couldn't go outside and study them. They couldn't take samples from them. They couldn't do anything other than, like, they couldn't even check to see if they damaged the hull before they took off.
No.
Like,
they're extremely limited. Well, that's the end of my notes. Anybody else?
I had a few thoughts, actually. I like that she gave some thought to the colonialism of space exploration.
Yeah.
And I mean, some real careful thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was
That's why I like the changing of us rather than the changing of them. Us and them. And changing to suit their habitat, not the other way around. That's
yeah, if we were able to, like, get those sort of, like, patches so that we can start, you know, because how good would that be to even have those sorts of patches to, you know, be better at absorbing radiation from the sun, which would help reduce cancer, which, you know, that, like, especially like here in Australia where sun is such a prevalent sort of thing, and skin cancer is so prevalent. Being able to have those sorts of patches where, you know, it sort of starts changing your internal monologue to, like, be able to take in more radiation and use that for energy, like, it would be really, really interesting. Like, if we could create something like that. Bless you, G. But I did like the way that the patches also, like, you know, helped them put on muscle and helped them, you know, help them put on muscle and help them, you know, glitter so that they could absorb light and see better in the dark. And that, like, it was really interesting the way that I assume that the patches had been, like, given sort of modifications for each planet, like, because they kind of knew what they were going for. Like, it wasn't like the guys on the ship were modifying the patches. The patches were, like, set up to
Yeah, they were, like, pre-packed on board for those mission-specific.
Yeah. Although I did wonder, given the idea at the end was that they would go to a planet that they weren't planned to go to, whether they did have the ability to code those patches to be able to give them what they needed.
She did say that those planets, some of those planets were, like, Earth equivalent, or like would be viable for living on without extras, basically. Like, that's why she sort of suggested that point, because there were multiple planets in that system that could be viable for human life, basically.
I wondered how different they would be when/if they returned to Earth. Would they still basic humans, but those patches were changing them on a DNA level, weren't they?
But it wasn't permanent.
It would be interesting though, like, if you were like, I really like this one, can I just keep this trait now? Do I have to give it back?
Once you've changed your DNA, like, there's changing it back, and, you know.
Well, that could be just the science is falling apart a little bit, kind of, like.
Well, it certainly was probably one of the least scientific parts of it.
Yeah.
I like the whole subversion of the human race. Like, we're changing ourselves into aliens. I really liked that. It was such a great idea. That's what made me read it. I wasn't going to read it. I was like, another space novel. Then I was like, oh, so we change rather than the other way around. Like, rather than going and conquering Earth, we change and adapt and then learn and then move on. Like, wow, that's a novel idea.
And I also liked the way she does some pushing back at capitalism as well. Particularly with like the OCA, the organisation that sends them out, is basically crowdfunding space. Like, I found actually one of the enduring images for me from the book from the first time that I read it was actually the grove at the OCA campuses, where you go down and like you see the names,
all the names.
Yeah, I mean that image really stuck with me after the first time I read it, and so it was nice to go back there and to see like she'd really given it some thought, like what might happen to humanity in the next few decades and what the trajectory might be. I really appreciated that.
I could totally see it happening, like crowdfunding something like that, because
well,
you
mean,
know, when people can't get the money elsewhere.
Like the amount of stupid things that get crowdfunded, why should we not crowdfund space adventure?
What am I getting out of it?
Yeah, she does say in the notes too that it's something that's already happening.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you don't get anything out of it, then you don't have to fund it, mate. That's the whole
but I mean,
point
it'd
of
be an
being
easy
crowdfunded.
thing to give as like a perk, being that like we'll upload videos of what we're doing and you get to watch them. And like, lots of people would pay some money to do that though.
Like, it was a 40-year trip. People who are old enough to put money in probably aren't really going to care about seeing. It'll be 40 years. They may or may not be still alive, depending on how old they are.
You might not remember.
Like, I don't know. I've crowdfunded some things that I thought were going to take 40 years to actually get made.
I've crowdfunded some things that I still haven't gotten. So,
I mean, like
we all made time capsules as kids in primary school.
That's true.
Like you put this in, and when it comes out, it's going to be something, well, different than a time capsule. But yeah, same kind of idea.
Yeah.
And Ariadne talks a lot about the work they do being for the people. And so I kind of feel like it's just a way of paying it forward in a way. Like, you support the mission, like on a general level, the knowledge and things that have already come out of what they've done. So you pay for the next one.
Yeah, so you're crowdfunding for the next generation to be able to enjoy, you know, the result of that mission or whatever.
Yeah.
Knowledge. And if they'd found an intelligent species, that would have been a benefit as well, hopefully.
And surely there are no shortage of science nerds in the world.
My only concern about doing crowdfunding for things like that, like basically for science, obviously not so much directly for space travel, but for science in general, is that I feel like it would become very clickbaity very quickly, like rather than being for pure, because a lot of science, as important as it is often very boring, as she says in the book.
Watching Petri dishes, yay.
Yeah, discovering stuff is the exciting part. Doing the actual science is not.
Exactly. And often it takes years till you get something that is exciting. And this was sort of an example that is an immediately exciting thing, but there's absolutely nothing to guarantee most science would be. So
I mean, immediately exciting for us, probably not for the people on Earth.
That too.
And also a lot of science inventions come out of things that you weren't necessarily planning on inventing as well, like Wi-Fi that the Australians created as well. Yeah,
exactly.
And now CSIRO is being defunded. But anyway, fun.
I like how the changes back on Earth as well, like it was like time skipping, and I got more actually from the back of the book, the blurb on the back that said, you know, one discovery launched a religion, or one discovery launched this, and how it affected Earth. There wasn't quite so much of that in the book, but having that thought in the back of your head, like, what is this discovery meaning to us back on Earth? And then 20 years later, it's like, how long did it take for them to get it? What do they get from that? What changes have been made? And then there's a solar flare that wipes everything. It's just like...
Well, when you were talking about the time, like, passing, it sort of reminded me of that bit where they're watching the news and they see the guy and she's completely taken aback by what he's wearing. And she's like, I know to them he probably looks completely fine, but I find his hair just outlandish, and what's with the cut of his suit? What is going on?
It
It
sounds
sort of reminded me,
weird.
you know, when you watch, like, an old TV show from, like, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and you're like, what on earth do they think they're wearing? But then you remember that was what was
Yeah.
normal
Like,
back then.
What is this? Why? Why did you think that this was good?
Oh God, I look back at my own photos and think the same thing.
It's
God,
true.
what were you
I look
thinking?
at things that I wore or that were popular when I was little, and I never thought much of it. I was just like, yep, that's just what people wear. Like,
Mhm.
But it actually reminds me a lot of that episode of The Next Generation where they discover those people who were frozen from like the 20th century
Mhm.
and they wake them up and this dude is like, what? People don't make money anymore? Everybody's just got everything they need? I'm rich. You can't do this to me. Sorry, that episode always makes me laugh.
If only, Mel. If only.
True.
Anything
Anything else?
Get another drink. Sorry.
Oh, good.
We haven't finished. Bye, Kirsten.
oh, she's
Just
just
getting a drink, that's all. Hopefully she'll get you one too, Matt.
It depends what she's getting.
Mm.
What are you getting? Oh yeah, okay.
There you go.
Hello.
Anybody else got anything else from the book?
I just had a beer.
The end.
The ending, yes.
The end.
Talk about the
Like,
ending, yeah.
do we want them to keep going? Do we think like Earth is going to recover? Are they going to keep them sending on, or are they?
I feel like they should just go
die in
on.
stasis?
Like, honestly, because I mean, they're just as likely to die in stasis if they decide to go on if they just stay. Like, I think they should go on because, like, at this point in time, I don't know if it's worth them going home. Like,
Well, also, they don't know what's going on down there anyway.
Yeah.
yeah, like they got that message from Lee. And they were like, we're going to go back to Earth, even though we're damaged. And everyone was like, well, shit, mate, that's not good.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't
That's
good.
not good.
Or maybe it was. Who knows? But they don't know. And I feel like at least going forward, even if they do die going forward, they've at least tried to discover more. And that was the whole point of them being sent out there. Like, they've sent their information back to Earth, whether it gets there or not. Like, if they crash into the Earth, that's not
no.
And presumably there had been 4 other missions that had returned before Lee's, but they'd never heard anything from them. So I feel like if there have been 5 times tried already, it just doesn't, it seems like a waste to try for a 6th time. Like, are you really going to expect anything to be different?
It seems like they can't go back even if they wanted to, because all the previous attempts have failed, so the likelihood is that they won't be able to get back anyway.
Thanks.
It's more because there's nothing there, right?
Yeah, like, because didn't Lee say that there's a problem with their ship and there'll be no one there to save them if it went wrong?
Yeah.
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 Or he wasn't aware of what was there, so he was going down to find out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they said that there had been some sort of massive geothermal event.
Yeah.
That was a guess, wasn't it?
They said from what it looks like from up above.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you're looking down on a planet, you could probably make a fairly educated guess since they've just been like
I suppose the world would look different, right? Like the land itself.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've been trained to work out what the weather is doing and what that means could be affecting the land and what the land, like, they've been trained to go to random planets and look at it and work out, is it safe to land? Is it not safe to land? You know, what are these storms? Like, that's part of the education of what they've been doing, or at least one of their members of the ship would have been educated in that sort of thing. So they could have made a fairly good educated guess about exactly what had actually happened. They may not have been 100% correct, but they would have at least been able to make a fairly educated guess and being fairly correct, or at least on the right track.
Yeah. I feel like even at the beginning when she talked about the fact that they had to come back, she was already a little bit dismissive of the idea that they had to come back. Not because she wanted to stay somewhere and corrupt the planet. She was very good about that side of things. But that she seemed almost to not agree with that idea from the very beginning.
I have to say that introduction made a lot more sense the second time around.
Oh, I agree. Like the whole premise of the story at the beginning didn't make any sense. Like, why is this report told in such a story-like manner?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you get to the ending and you're like, oh, that's why you were doing this way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I must admit, the ending was not predictable.
Mm. Yeah,
Like,
it caught me by surprise too.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's over. It's like, thank you for listening to this Audible. I'm like, what?
Me too.
What?
I was like, what? That's can't be it. Damn
You
it.
guys need to double check that they're not novellas before you pay on Audible.
Yeah. It also just went really fast because I was enjoying it so much. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't just that it was actually short, it just felt short as well because I listened to it. Like, when it's a really good Audible book, I'll listen. Like, if it's just an okay book, then I listen to it in the car to and from work. If it's really good, I'll be like listening to it doing other things as well.
Right.
And
yeah.
so I was like, I was done with this book so quickly, and I was like, oh, it can't be over already.
Fair enough. Anything else, guys?
That was all I had. I'm done.
You're done.
Once again, she does a good job of like including a diverse range of characters
Yeah.
in a really casual way. Like, it's not a big deal.
Without making it blindingly obvious.
The only I definitely didn't have a problem with her doing that, obviously, but I had to question the likelihood of their group of scientists just fitting that perfectly every time. Like, I was like, is this what you guys look for every time? Is some sort of relationship dynamic sort of thing when you build these groups? Like, that must be tough.
Yeah, I did wonder about that. Like,
they probably do.
Yeah,
It'd
they
be
have
cool
to
if they
consider
did.
it. In such a small group, they would have had to do a lot of personality type assessments to try to get a group that would gel. And I imagine they would have done training and stuff where they had to be in small groups together. And because I was they worked together so well, even though they were such different people.
And it was a really good balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, they already do a bit of that for the ISS, like obviously not to the extent that it is in this, but still they're looking for like certain personality types.
Look, I'll give it this. It was still better than Lost in Space with the whole idea that the kids are going to do the science and things all those lines.
They're just really smart kids.
Super smart kids. Just, you know, one of them happens to be a doctor. Wait, that might have been the version that I'm familiar with. I'm not sure about the other version.
Talking about the Netflix version?
You're talking about the new version.
I'm talking about the 90s version.
Oh, that,
The one with Matt LeBlanc in it?
Yes.
Yeah.
The only one I've ever actually watched. I did a little bit of the TV show when it was black and white, and I was like, oh God, I can't do this. It's extremely sexist.
Watch the new one.
It's
the only one where don't watch the new one. It's bad.
No, it's great.
Like it.
Parker Posey is awesome.
No, Mel will not like it. Don't make her watch it. It is too dark and too spoopy for Mel.
That's why I haven't watched it. I was already aware of the fact that it's too dark for me, and
but
that's
the
fine.
robot
I
in
just
the
went
new
and
one is so cool.
I just went and rewatched the Matt LeBlanc one, which I know everybody hates, but I loved it, so that's fine.
We know how you feel about our AIs, Karina.
The robot is really cool. It's just the general atmosphere of the show was so depressing.
Oh, it was.
The boys wanted to keep watching it, and we both sat there like, no more. You go watch it by yourselves.
Lionel's been watching it by himself because
and I think I got through 5 episodes of it, and I went, nah, I'm done.
I think we did 2.
Yeah, I think
maybe
we got
3.
3 or 4, maybe 5. Like
no, we didn't get that far. We did 2 or 3.
Okay.
I shouldn't have watched the last 2. I'm pretty sure I was cleaning when I watched the last 2, which means I probably didn't actually watch them.
Yeah. So does that mean that I can officially call this
Yep.
the far more responsible Lost in Space?
Yes.
Oh, that is way underselling it. Come on.
They weren't
Basically,
really
Yes,
lost.
you can.
They weren't so much lost, no, but they were planet hopping the same way, and they're a family group, quite clearly.
I did
They were
like
more
the
of a
way
found
that
family, though. Yeah.
I did like the way that between the four of them, like there seemed to be physical affection between at least the majority of them. Maybe not in every way possible, but like
Yeah.
Ariadne seemed to be physically affectionate with all three of the other people in the
Yeah.
group. And it didn't seem to be a problem that she was affectionate with all three of the people. Like it wasn't
And
like
of
she
course you
was.
would
That was
be.
never the tension. That was never the problem
Yeah.
at all.
No,
Yeah.
no. I'm not saying that it
And
was a
of course
problem.
it would be
No,
like
that's what I'm
that,
saying. That
right?
was what was good about it. It was
Yeah.
never a problem.
In any other story, it would have become a plot point about someone
would have
was
been a
getting
love
upset
triangle.
about something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah,
And,
like
and it
you know,
wasn't ever
Jack
like
was
that.
upset because she was with Shakonda, but she really liked
Exactly.
Elena, but Elena didn't like her. Oh, what was me? So
The only thing was because it
What I
was very
listening to this
muchly.
morning.
The only thing is because it was very muchly from Arianda's perspective. I actually kind of wanted to understand the other relationship dynamics a little bit. I was like, oh, I would just love to understand, just what are the other relationships there, because they could be just friends and I don't know. It was all very interesting. I was like, or if that would have been nice.
Mm.
I feel like Elena and Jack are at least somewhat affectionate with one another. There are a couple of times, like when they were running on that last planet.
Yes,
She got
yes.
to like the crest of a hill and he just like had his hand on her shoulder and she like covered his. So
Yeah.
I think that there is at least some affection between the two of them.
Which would make sense because Chikonde wasn't interested in
What the
affection.
shit was
Who's
that?
Ace?
Oh,
A
I
dog?
kind of felt more like the opposite was missing. There was no conflict between them, or not enough conflict between them. For spending so much time locked in a small area together, especially on that one where they're stuck for months in the ship and
Opera.
can't leave, there wasn't enough conflict between the other people there. Like you
But was
would
that
have
possibly just a fault of having an unreliable narrator? She was telling the story from a perspective of trying to sell what they were doing rather than trying to tell the story of our relationship.
I mean, there was clearly
True.
tension there. Like she's really kind of underwriting it a little bit. Like Elena is clearly on edge and being extremely compulsive with her checks of everything.
And she there was a mention of them having a full-on fight at one point. She just sort of said they had a fight and then they got over it.
I just rethought it the way that you described it then, Mel. It's not a story about the characters, it's a story about the mission and what they're doing. So it's not focused on the characters so much as what the actions that they're doing are. And that makes more sense to me, I think.
Yeah.
Characters versus the worlds.
There was enough character work there to be really satisfying too, though. So
yeah.
But that's you got. I think that's about the context of the story, and that's about the audience that she was trying to convey it to. Because the whole point is that she's selling this to people back on Earth to get them to make a decision. So giving the context of who they are and who they are as people is important. Telling about every little nitty gritty fight and thing that happens, definitely not.
Dog. Sorry, there's a game on at the same time as well.
I got to say, it's one of these books that I found it very hard to pick holes in.
It was written really well.
Yeah.
She's a fantastic author. Really, really well written. Great language, great structure, great hidden narrative. Yeah, fantastic.
I'm not a huge fan of like super sci-fi ebooks, and she's one of the few people that I really enjoy her sci-fi. Her and J. Christoph.
Wait, doesn't J. Christoph only really do sci-fi with Amy Kaufman?
I like those books too.
Yeah. No, it's only because I want Amy to have credit here as well. That's all.
No, because he's done. What did he do?
I could totally be wrong. I don't do J. Christoph on his own because he's far too dark for me.
I mean, Amy doesn't really write sci-fi on her own either.
No, it just seems to be a thing the two of them do together.
Lifelike?
Yep, it is sci-fi. It's not space sci-fi.
Yeah. It's not space sci-fi, but it is sci-fi.
Fair enough.
Mishmash.
I mean, it's got some serious Mad Max vibes happening.
Yeah.
Does that mean, Mel, that you're not reading this one?
No, I'm reading that one. I do them together
That's with Amy
because
Kaufman.
Amy seems to
Take out the gore.
Yeah, he just sort of seems to take away a little bit of the gore and the darker factors that tend to be a little bit too much for me from Jay by himself. But Amy wrote one, I think it was together with someone else, which is called Unearthed. I think that one's a sci-fi
Oh,
one.
you're right. Of course. Yes. Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, so I think she does. Maybe it is more of an Amy thing that sort of pushes him into the sci-fi, spacey kind of area. I'm not sure. I haven't read Unearthed yet, though. It's on my shelves. Actually, Naomi and Karina gave it to me.
I read the duology.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't done that one yet, but I do intend to. So, because I think it's the Amy factor that I enjoy more so than the Jade factor, which is, I'm pretty sure, the complete opposite for Karina and Naomi.
Like, I didn't mind the one that Amy Kaufman did with Megan Spooner, but I also don't think I would. These Broken Stars, but I also wouldn't read the rest of the series. So, like, I enjoyed the book while I was reading it, but I also wouldn't read the rest of the series. So, what does that say about books?
It was popcorn.
Yes, it was popcorn.
Okay. All right, guys. Are we finished with the book?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Anybody watching out there in... Yeah, it's pretty. Anybody out there in internet land who's watching us tonight, thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Bye.